Leaders from South America and Africa are on the tiny Venezuelan island of Margarita for the second South America-Africa summit. The inter-regional gathering aims to strengthen and expand economic and political ties between the two countries. These are live pictures coming into us. That is, of course, the host, the Venezuelan President Hugo Chávez. You just saw the Brazilian President Lula Ignacio da Silva. Others in attendance include the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, as well as two Latin American presidents who could be said to be more allied to Chávez than the United States. They're Evo Morales of Bolivia, the Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa. Well, let's go live to Margarita Island. Our correspondent Will Grant is there. Will, I suppose it's no coincidence at all that this gathering comes the day after Barack Obama hosted the G20 summit in Pittsburgh. Chávez trying to send a message, no doubt?
I think he probably is, yes. I mean, it's going to make quite a family photo of this summit. As you've mentioned, some of the figures who have made it to Margarita, in amongst them as well, Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe. And so this really is going to be, from Mr. Chávez's point of view, a south-south summit, something between Africa and Latin America. An effort from his point of view to not look towards the north always. He quoted the Mario Benedetti poem, "The South also exists," and I think that has become almost the slogan of this summit.
Hugo Chávez is a great populist in Latin America. He's supported many other left-wing governments on that continent. How popular is he with, well, let's term it, generally, the South?
It's a good question. I think in Africa he is actually quite popular. I don't know necessarily with which African leaders he goes down very well with and which they've got more doubts. I was speaking to somebody from the South African delegation here, and they were very reserved, and they were also making noises, positive noises about Lula, so that clearly they're a bit more pragmatic perhaps than wanting to be seen to be too closely allied with Mr. Chávez. But I think at a sort of citizen level, I think a lot of African countries find Mr. Chávez very refreshing, and of course there's energy involved in all this. So a lot of African nations are looking to him as an important energy partner, an important market, and an important backer of their situations, their domestic situations.
Well, Grant, thank you very much indeed. Just seeing pictures of the Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner as well at the continuing summit between South America and Africa.
The leaders of Libya and Venezuela have called on fellow heads of states from Africa and South America to create a new strategic alliance between their regions. Speaking at an intercontinental summit in the Venezuelan island of Margarita, Libya's leader Muammar Gaddafi said he was in favour of a military-style pact, calling it a NATO of the South. Will Grant reports on the first day of the conference.
This was Mr. Chávez's alternative to the G20. Shortly after the leaders of the world's richest countries gathered in Pittsburgh, the leaders of some of the poorest came here to Venezuela. More than 50 heads of state and government met at the popular beach resort of Margarita in what is only the second such meeting of South American and African nations. Some of those assembled will have undoubtedly raised eyebrows in Washington, with Colonel Gaddafi of Libya rubbing shoulders with the Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe and Bolivia's Evo Morales. But the emphasis of the summit was firmly on South-South cooperation, and the host was robust in his message about the future of the two continents.
Ya no habrá mundo unipolar. África será un gran polo.
There will no longer be a unipolar world. Africa will be an important pole, geographically, economically, social and human. In the 21st century, the African Union and South America will be truly great powers.
For that to become a reality, the declarations of intent made at this summit will need to be backed by concrete offers during closed-door bilateral discussions. The proposed areas of cooperation include energy and mineral resources, education, trade and agriculture. One such plan announced by Mr. Chávez was a joint development bank worth $20 billion in order to end their dependence on credits from the north. Brazil has traditionally had an important presence in Africa, but this summit may now do much for Mr. Chávez's personal standing in Africa too. The delegates are confident it will help bring the two continents closer together. But critics say it will take a lot more effort and investment if the summit's conclusions are really to make a difference in the lives of the Latin American and African poor. Will Grant, BBC News, Margarita Island.
Thousands of supporters of the deposed President of Honduras, Manuel Zelaya, have again protested in the capital Tegucigalpa to demand his return to power. The demonstrators marched to the Brazilian embassy where Mr. Zelaya has been taking refuge since his surprise return on Monday.
Protests by supporters of the ousted Honduran president are gaining intensity. They marched to the Brazilian embassy in the capital Tegucigalpa, where Manuel Zelaya has taken refuge. He's been there since making a dramatic return to Honduras last Monday. His supporters are growing increasingly confident.
Our people are excited by the hope that we'll be able to reinstate constitutional order in the country. The people are constantly, permanently and positively mobilized. Peacefully, of course.
Army roadblocks prevented the protesters from reaching the embassy. A ring of soldiers surrounds the building. Diplomats at the embassy have denounced their tactics.
This
is not a normal situation. I'd say this is the only embassy in the world that's under siege.
Mr. Zelaya has accused the army of leaking toxic gas into the embassy. The Red Cross has since gone into the building and said it found no urgent humanitarian needs. The coup leaders have offered to let Mr. Zelaya leave the embassy without arrest so long as he goes back into political exile. He says he has no intention of doing so and won't give up until his presidency is restored. The army says it isn't planning to storm the embassy, but with international mediation efforts making little progress, the standoff is looking more precarious every day. Bill Hayton, BBC News.
200 years ago, Venezuela's Declaration of Independence unleashed the start of Latin America's freedom from colonial rule. Now the country is celebrating the date, but it's controversial. The hero of that period is the great liberator Simón Bolivar, a national icon. But his legendary status has been hijacked by Hugo Chávez, with some saying the Venezuelan leader has expropriated Bolivar to legitimize his own socialist reforms. From Caracas, the BBC's Will Grant has the story.
Simón Bolivar is everywhere in Venezuela. The great liberator, as he is known, is worshipped in the oil-rich nation, and Hugo Chávez is one of his most ardent followers. The socialist president often gives a replica of Bolivar's sword to distinguished guests, and recently expropriated a building said to be Bolivar's former home. Mr. Chávez often refers to the independence struggle of El Libertador and makes overt comparisons to his own self-styled Bolivarian revolution in Venezuela. There is a direct link, he says, between the two. The Plaza Bolivar in Caracas is a Chávez stronghold, and many of the passers-by agree with the president.
The circumstances are different, it's another age, but it's the same, it's about independence, not this time from the Spanish, but we've now overcome the imperialism of the United States, of companies.
Others disagree. At the Simón Bolivar University, there is an institute dedicated to the study of Venezuelan history. Its director believes Mr. Chávez is manipulating the memory of Bolivar for political ends.
Bolivar was, for the Bolivarian people, a symbol of unity for the nation. Today, Bolivar has been politicized and become a symbol of division. Nowadays, one cannot be considered Bolivarian unless you're with Chávez and his government, and it wasn't like that in the past.
The children at the Simón Bolivar bilingual school in Caracas are putting the final touches to their Independence Day pageant. As the Spanish colonial rulers are ordered from Venezuela, the teachers watch from the wings, careful to ensure that their classrooms remain free from national politics.
We try to put that away. Here in our school, we teach the topics and the subjects as they are, and without influences, and just the history, what happened at that time.
Beyond the comparisons between Simón Bolivar and the current political process in Venezuela, the bicentenary is a chance for many young Venezuelans to simply celebrate a common history among many Latin American countries.
Bolívar Libertador.
Rehearsals are underway in Venezuela for the celebration of the beginning of the end of colonial rule in Latin America. Not all Venezuelans may see a link between the 19th century and Mr. Chávez's particular brand of 21st century socialism, but the government believes the connection is real and will continue to use the image of El Libertador to reinforce the Bolivarian revolution in Venezuela. Will Grant, BBC News, Caracas.